This video is brought to you by our own Meta. Thank you so much for donating. If you want to support Brackeys yourself, you can go to patreon.com/Brackeys.
Thanks for tuning in at Brackeys.
Hello everyone and welcome to this video on creating a tower defense game in Unity. Today we'll be adding a laser beamer to our game. So it's always a lot of fun to play around with lasers, and today we'll just be importing the model for the turret. We'll also be setting up a line renderer that will give that lasery feel whenever we shoot stuff. And then in an upcoming video, because it was a bit too much to squeeze into just one video, we'll also be slowing down enemies whenever they're hit. So that will allow for more interesting gameplay mechanics and give the user more abilities to create interesting kind of defensive setups. So that is what we're going to be doing today, and without further ado, let's just jump right into it. So as you can see, I'm here in Unity, and I really want to begin with just importing the models. So let's minimize Unity here and head on over and open the Tower Defense Assets pack. And you can of course download this for free, and there's a link for that in the description. So let's jump right into our models folder under our laser beamer. And you can see there's both a blend file here in case you have Blender installed, and if you do not, we'll just use the FBX as we have done the other time. So let's just use that one and drag it into Unity. But before we do that, let's create a folder here under our imports, and let's call that laser beamer. Just to stay nicely organized, we can drag the FBX in there instead, and you will of course see that it creates a laser beamer object, which we will put a scale factor of 0.5 on and hit apply. And then we have a materials folder with all of the different materials that we'll just be modifying a tiny bit here in a second. So now let's take our laser beamer and drag it into the scene, and let's reset the transform if it isn't already, and hit F to focus in on that. I'll just shift it back to perspective view there, and let's have a look in the scene view here how it looks in game, and I think it looks just fine. However, there are some things here that we need to tweak. So the first thing is that we want this to be in one word. That's just a preference of mine whenever dealing with stuff inside of Unity. And then I want to rename these things here. So this one here is the base, that is what we called the other ones, and this is going to be the head. Awesome. Then we can change the materials for to make this look a bit better. So let's find our bolts here. I actually want them to be black. You can of course choose whatever you want here. And I'm going to bump up the metallicness on those and bump down the smoothness a bit. There we go. Actually make them a bit darker, a bit more metallic, I guess. That will actually darken them. And then we can take the base here, because I think, and that is the stand here. Let's rename that to base as well, so we don't get confused. And I think this is a bit too blue, so let's actually make it more over in the gray area here, a bit more metallic, take down the smoothness just a tad, and maybe even lighten it up a bit here. So something like that is a lot better, because I wanted to kind of get in, be in line with the other turret stands. So that's fine. I do want it to be a tiny bit more blue. Then we can take our main turret, which is this part up here. And I actually really like the feel of this. I just want it to be more metallic, which means that it will be darkened, and therefore we have to brighten it up in our color. And then I think we can maybe take our smoothness and just dial that down just a tad. And I really like the feel of this. And then we can find our turret accent here, which is this yellow color, and we can definitely go with the yellow, but I think we just need to dial it down just a tiny bit for this to look a bit better, something like that. And it's just small tweaks here. And then finally we have the pipe. I think we can make that pop even more, so let's just give that even more of a purple color, a tiny bit of metallicness, and then definitely bump down the smoothness here. And I think that looks pretty cool. Definitely looks lasery, maybe even toxic, so that's fine. And what we can do now is just actually apply our turret script. So let's apply our turret here, and we'll give this a range of say 20. And we won't mess with the fire rate. That's not going to matter, because we're going to be creating our own little system for dealing with lasers, because they are kind of an ongoing thing. We have the enemy tag. We'll just leave that, and then we need to add a path to rotate. So let's just right click, create a new empty object, and reset that, and call this one our path to rotate. And let's drag this under our head, and then reset the transform to that, drag it out again, and that will just center it kind of where it needs to be, which is here. And now of course we need to have our blue Z arrow point in the direction of our head. So we've done this multiple times, and we're just making sure that when we rotate this, it will actually align with the Z axis being forward, so that we don't have to do any messing around with any rotations inside of the script. We just do that in here, which is much more visual. So make sure that it says pivot and local up here, and then we can maybe 0 the X on the X, and 0 the coordinate on the X, and then put a 90. That will have to be a negative 90 on the Y. And let's also put a 1, 1, 1 scale. I think that's going to be better. And then we can take our head here and drag that under the path to rotate, and we can just hit continue here. And now we should see that our path to rotate points in the correct direction, and we can just easily move this part around. Awesome. So now we can reference that in here as well. So let's drag our path to rotate into the path to rotate field. And finally, we need a bullet prefab, except we're not going to be using bullets, so we'll ignore that as well. However, we do want a fire point, so we'll have some place where our laser will origin. So, and we are just going to create that as we've always done under the path to rotate. So let's create an empty there. Again, reset it, and we'll name this our fire point. And we will make sure again to position this correctly. So let's view it from the side, switch to isometric view, and we can just drag that up there. And I want it to be pretty close now because we're not actually instantiating anything here. We're just kind of putting a point for the line renderer so we can get really close. And it's actually centered from the front here, I believe, already. That's awesome. Yeah, great. Cool, so now we can drag this in, select the line, the laser beamer, and drag the fire point onto the correct slot, and there we go. So I believe that was all we needed to set up on this object so far. So let's actually go ahead and turn this into a prefab now. So let's go into prefabs and drag that in there, the entire laser beamer. And we'll just have it sit here for a moment so that we can easily change things if we want to. So the next thing is kind of adding this to our build menu so that we can actually put it in the game as the game is running. So to do this, again, we find our overlay canvas under shop, and then we see that we have a standard turret and a missile launcher item. And Apple really wants me to spend money these days, so I'll just dismiss that. The only thing that's running out is my patience. There we go. So I'll duplicate our missile launcher item here. And I will call this one laser beamer, and we'll actually do laser beamer item. And we need to change the icon, and we'll do that in just a second, but let's also change the cost text down here, and I'll change that to say $350 to make it very expensive, which means we'll have to make it powerful as well. And we need to go into the shop and change this function here. And I believe we can just go ahead and do that right now. So let's double click on the shop to be taken over here, and let's double click that to open it up in Visual Studio. And all we need to do here is first add a new turret blueprint. So we'll go public turret blueprint, and this is going to be our laser beamer. And we'll add a new function for this as well. So we'll call this one the select laser beamer. And it's going to say laser beamer selected. There we go. And we are going to select the turret to build, and we're going to pass in our laser beamer, of course. Awesome. And one thing that I actually noticed is that under our build manager, if we go to our game master and find our build manager here, you can see that we still have a standard turret and a missile launcher prefab referenced, but we're not using those in any way. So let's just double click on that and go in here and remove those two fields. There's really no reason for those to sit there because we are passing them along inside of the turret blueprint. So we can just remove those, and you can see that we should still be error-free down here. Awesome. So now that we've added those, we can find our shop, and we can find our laser beamer, and we can set this up. So let's set the cost to 350, and let's also find our prefab and drag that in there. Cool. So I believe that was kind of all we needed to set up in terms of the shop here, except of course we need to add an icon. So let's have a look at importing one of those. And again, inside of the tower defense assets pack, I have a sprites folder and I've included a laser beamer icon.png. There's also a Photoshop file if you use Photoshop. Again, I'm just going to import the PNG here, and let's find our icons folder and let's drag that right in there. I believe the other ones we imported were PNG as well. Let me just check for that because I like to use the same. Actually, the first one was a Photoshop. We'll just do a PNG here. It really doesn't matter on my system. So you can see here that the texture type is currently set to texture. We need to change that to 2D and UI. And the sorting here, or the alpha channel, should be sorted out. And I believe that's all we need to change, except we can maybe change this to 512 if we have OCD. And then we can make this true color. There we go. Just to make it display really beautifully. And then we can change that inside of the missile launcher icon here, change that to the laser beamer. So you can see that set up inside of the Unity scene, and I actually think that looks fairly decent. Good. Okay, things are moving along. I actually want to maybe make it a tiny bit bigger. I actually want to make it maybe 120 down here. I think that's better. And that looks really, really cool. So now we should be able to just hit play and select the laser beamer, and it should say, whoops, there's something here we haven't assigned. Oh, that's on our laser beamer. We haven't assigned a bullet prefab. For now, just while testing, we'll go in here and just assign a normal bullet one. We'll just do a bullet. There we go. Just so we won't get any errors. So we can select here our missile, or it says missile launcher selected. That's because we have to find our laser beamer item. There we go, under the shop, and we have to change the on-click event. So we've actually added the function, but we haven't changed this event. So it still points to the select missile launcher function. So we just need to go under shop and change that to select laser beamer, and we should be all right. So let's try and hit play now. Clicking there, laser beamer selected, and clicking somewhere in the scene, and you can see it appears. And we can only purchase one because we actually don't have that much money when starting out. Cool. So now I think it's time to add in a line renderer to do some actual laser thing. So let's do that. So let's create we could either actually put it just in here, or we could put it as a separate object. I think we're just going to put it on the root, but you can do anything you want. So let's just put it here. And we're not going to be casting shadows. We're not going to be receiving shadows. Motion vectors we'll just leave on. We'll have one material, which we'll specify in a moment. And let's just set up some temporary positions here that will allow us to view what this looks like. So let's put a Y value of 3 and a Y value of 3 down here, and then a Z value of maybe 5. Just so we can see kind of what is going on. Actually, we could put it out here, but I think this is going to be fine. Good. So this is what our line currently looks like. Not too awesome. So let's go to, excuse me, I think I'll have to take a sip of water here. That's better. All right, so let's go into our parameters and let's put our start width to 0.3 and our end width to 0.3 as well. Cool. That is definitely better. And then we can go inside of our no, our positions are fine. We can go and find an actual material for this. So let's create a new one inside the materials folder. Let's create a new material and let's call this one laser. And let's then go back to our laser beamer and drag the laser in there. And we can go down here, change the shader to something like unlit color maybe, or you could go particles, alpha blended. Actually, I think I'm going to go alpha blended. And you can see that we can mess around with the color in here. So that's what we're going to be doing. So let's take our start color here and change that to some kind of orangey thing. And let's take our end color. Actually, I want to switch that around. This one needs to be a bit, actually, let's do the first one red and the other one, yeah, let's do that. So this one will be kind of bright, almost yellow. and this one is going to be kind of red to give that cool looking effect there. And we can maybe make the first one here a bit transparent as well. And this is where I want to go in to our material and bump this up a bit, and also bump this up a bit. Something like that looks a bit better. And there we go. I actually think that looks kind of nice. I'm looking inside of the game view here just to get an idea of how that looks. And you can definitely go ahead and add more effects around this. One thing that I do recommend is that you, at the tip of the laser, add some kind of particle system that you toggle on and off in order to give a cool impression that the laser is actually hitting the object and there's sparks bouncing off and stuff like that. If that's something you really want to see me do, leave that in the comment and I'll include it in the next video for slowing down the enemies and stuff like that. Then we'll just go particle crazy, which you know I love. It's not that I don't want to do it. So please leave a comment. Okay, so we'll continue the video here. So we've set up these parameters and we're actually ready to go ahead and make this interactive through the script. So let's apply this. And don't worry about this being looking weird like this. We can just delete our laser beamer. Should be totally fine. And then we can find the scripts called turret. There we go. So let's double click our turret script. And we'll move things around a bit here to organize them for what we want to do. So currently we have these attributes. I want to call this general. And I pretty much only want our range to be in here, because the next thing that I want to do is have one called use bullets. And this is going to be the default. And in here we have stuff for bullets. We have the fire rate, the fire countdown. We also have the bullet prefab. Awesome. So we'll just put all of those in there. And then we'll create a new header down here, which is going to be use, of course, laser. And we'll remove the default there. And to include the laser, what we'll do is we'll have a boolean that that we can check inside of the editor if we want the turret to use a laser instead. So we'll just do a public bool use laser, and we'll set that equal to false by default. Awesome. And then in here we can also have other stuff like a reference to a line renderer. So let's do a public line renderer, and we'll just do line renderer. By the way, in case you missed the recent Brackeys live stream, it's currently on the YouTube channel as a re-upload, so you can check that out. We recreated the Curve Fever, the snake-like game, and in there we do a lot of stuff with the line renderer, and we do that in Unity 5.5, which is currently in public beta, but will probably soon be released for real. And there's so much new stuff done to the line renderer. It looks so much better. So if you think this is looking kind of not that great, go check that out and play around with the features there. There's so much stuff to make it look a lot better. And especially with particles as well. So that's a lot of fun and you can check that out. Just wanted to mention that. So we have the public line renderer here, and let's actually put this to use. And just to give you an idea of what we just did, let me just find our prefabs and then find our laser beamer here, and you can see that this is now much more nicely grouped. And we'll just for the laser beamer here, we'll have to check use laser, and we'll drag our line renderer right in there. So if it's sitting on another object, you can just drag in that object and it will select the line renderer for you. So that should take care of all of that. And we can just remove the bullet prefab here. Not that it matters. It's just not the one that we're using. Cool. By the way, I'll just throw in one more point before continuing. If you want to set this up even more nicely so that you have a variable called use bullets, or maybe even an enumerator to select either bullets or laser, and then it will show fields depending on what you've selected, then I really suggest creating an editor script, and Unity is so easily extendable with those. It's just too much for this video that simply switches between displaying those. That's super easy to do. And you can just look up Unity Custom Editor. Good. So that was all. So now we can continue. So let's find the place here where we update stuff. So in here, we check if our target is equal to null. And if it isn't, meaning that we have a target, we log on to it. And then we handle some shooting. So let's take all of this log on code and move into a separate function. We should have done this a long time ago. So let's call this one log on target. And we'll move that down here. So void log on target. And we'll just paste in that entire code block in there. And then we can put an if statement here saying if use laser. Then we want to laser stuff. Whoops, not use laser. We want to create a new function called laser. That's really annoying. Let's just create the function here instead of getting around Visual Studio's autocomplete. So we'll have a void laser down here. And now we should be able to type it up here. So laser. And if not, so if we're using bullets, we can go ahead and do all of this fire countdown shooting stuff. Awesome. And you can of course put that into a separate function as well. But since we already have a shoot function, I don't really think that's necessary. Cool. So, and I can see that I've pressed insert there. Just needed to get rid of that. So inside of our laser, what we can now do is say line renderer dot, and then we can set the positions of the different points that we want our line renderer to go through. So again, if you haven't seen the live stream and I cover this in there, there's a positions array here, meaning each of these elements here in the array is a point that our line renderer will go through. So we can actually create more if you want kind of a bending laser. If you want one that zigzags or whatever, you can definitely do that. But for now, we'll just create a simple line. And we'll do that by simply setting the first element and the second element in the array. So we'll just do line renderer.setPosition. And we do that using an index. So in our case, the first element is indexed at 0 and giving it a position. And that's going to be our own position. But we want not to use that. We want to use our firepoint transform. Actually, it's a transform, so we can just do firepoint.position. And we want to set the second one, so line renderer.setPosition1 to our target's position, so target.position. There we go. So that actually does it for us, and we should see this working already. So if we go in here, if we hit play and place down our turret, we can see that that works. However, you will also notice that when our enemy here gets out of range, the line renderer does not disappear. So what we have to do in order to get that working is just using the fact that up here we're checking whether or not we have a target. So let's just make this a bit bigger here. So let's say if target is equal to null, we definitely want to return, but we want to do some stuff before that, and that is just checking if line renderer. Actually, let's first check if use laser is true. So we only want to do this kind of stuff if we're actually using a laser. And in that case, we can say if line renderer. Actually, we don't even need to do that if statement. We could do that if statement. We'll do it. If line renderer dot enabled, then we want to disable it. So we can just do line renderer dot enabled equals false. There we go. And you can of course put that inside the other if statement as well, but I think this is easier to read. And then down here, we can simply say that if line renderer dot enabled, and then put an exclamation mark. So if it's not enabled, we'll do line renderer dot enabled equals true. There we go. So this way we easily switch it on and off, and we only do it once, even though we are doing all of this stuff inside the update loop. So if we now hit play, we should see that when we spawn this in, we no longer have a line up here, and that there's no line until we actually get a target. And as soon as he's out of range, our line renderer just, again, disappears. So that is working just the way we want it to. And yeah, again, for the next video, we'll be slowing down the opponents. If you want me to add some damage over time, let me know. If you want me to add more particles or more effects, let me know. I would love to do that. And yeah, so that's pretty much all I wanted to show for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much to all of the awesome people who donated in September, and a special thanks to Arun Meta, Robert Roche, James Calhoun, Kim Rose Gugos, Bao Andan Duang, and Vixen P. Thank you so much for donating. You guys are awesome. If you want to support Brackeys yourself, you can go to patreon.com/Brackeys.